Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame induction. First, I'd like to introduce the board of directors here. We got Paul Crane, Russ Swenton, Paul B., which is over there, Greg Allen, which is right there, Shane Beatty, and we have Ed Stubbs, and Bob Martin, which is not here yet. He's coming? Okay. All right, so before we begin, we had a message from a 2020 inductee, Tom Peters, who would like to say hello to everybody, because he couldn't make it here today. Also, before we get started, I'd like to have Ed Stubbs come up.
I'm going to take up a few minutes of your time before we start this induction. As you know, I put on the VSCA national shows all over. This year we did one in Dunkirk, New York, and we were privileged to have the guy from Ski Rule there, original guy from Ski Rule. And I said to myself, well, where can I get an old Ski Rule? I tried and tried and tried. They only made like less than 10 in 64, 20 in 65, and 100, around 166. Well, thinking, the only one place I knew, Paul Crane. Paul, come up here, please. So, with great thanks from the VSCA and the Antique Snowmobile Club of America, I'm presenting this plaque to Paul for letting us have the sled. He drove 11 hours to bring that sled out to our show. Thank you, Paul.
All right, so now let's get started on the inductees. To announce the first one is Midge.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Melissa, for stepping in and doing these Hall of Fame things every year. I want to thank Paul Crane, who, without Paul, this never would have happened. And in the board, Shane actually called me about a week ago, and he asked me if I would read his plaque of his parents who's being inducted this year, and it's indeed my honor to do so. So my eyes aren't as good as they used to be, so I've got these things.
You're in good company.
Yeah. I told Sally a couple of years ago, she was working at the fair in the exhibition hall, and my wife and I were working there as well. I told her that my intent was to see that her and Mike would be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I said that we're going to do it in 2025. Now, does anybody here remember when Mike Beatty was one of the premier stock car drivers of his era in New England? Anybody remember that? His number of his stock car was 25. So the fact that I'm doing it for 2025 is no coincidence. It's because of his stock car number, and I told Sally that's when I wanted to induct them. Sally actually was the one that painted 25 on his stock car years ago, and later on they stepped to the plate and bought Riverside Speedway and turned it into a world-class quarter-mile short-track speedway. So I'm going to read this, if I can get through it. Mike and Sally Beatty, inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame as promoters, 2025. In 1962, when Mike was an 18-year-old mechanic at Timberland Machines Incorporated, he and Bob Clark would sneak back after hours to uncrate a new Skidoo, take it for a ride, then clean it off and put it back in the crate. This was the beginning of a lifelong involvement with a snowmobile. Now, they worked for Bob Bottoms. He was their boss at the time, and of course he became president of Timberland Machines later. And Bob Bottoms was a very shrewd businessman. And he probably knew about this little endeavor that Clark and Beatty had going. But he didn't say anything, and the reason he didn't say anything was because he was getting these sleds all set up for nothing. So, in August of 1964, both Mike and his wife Sally, along with about 40 others, attended a meeting to vote on and eventually pass what would become the oldest snowmobile club in America, the Lancaster Snowdrifters. Mike soon became heavily involved with the Lancaster Grand Prix, and Sally was right by his side. As Mike was a multi-time race chairman, Sally was always there behind the scenes, working the driver's admission booth or as a lap counter during racing or working the food concession, etc. They were a team. Absolutely a team. The Beatty sold Scarules from 1967 to 1970 until the distributor failed to keep their promise of Mike getting the first 1971 factory race sled received from the factory. Actually, I think it went to a bigger dealer with a little extra money involved, as I remember at the time. Beatty was then rehired by Timberland Machines Incorporated to work as the chief mechanic of Big T Racing. Through his experience in stock car racing and the use of racing fuel, Mike was one of the first to develop a Tillotson carburetor that could run on methanol alcohol fuel, boosting the horsepower to their Rotex engines well beyond the factory's own dyno tests. Bombardier immediately had Mike, along with Bob Fortin, drive to Valcourt, Quebec, to teach this at their race school. During the years after the Grand Prix ended in 1977, Mike and Sally worked tirelessly promoting the Snowdrifters. While Mike helped maintain the oldest snowmobile trails in New England, Sally was secretary and treasurer. Sally stayed involved with the club for many years after Mike's passing in 2012. Just before Mike's death, his son Shane asked what he thought of having a 2014 50th Grand Prix reunion. Mike said, "We did it once, we can do it again." Mike had it in his mind that he was going to help. On February 1st, 2014, Chairman Shane Beatty led the first group of race sleds onto the beautiful 1/3 mile ice oval for the 50th Grand Prix reunion. Sally was also there every day working. In 2016, Mike and Sally Beatty were honored with the Grand Prix Pioneer Award for their contributions to the sport of snowmobile racing. This is a great honor and for me to do this. And Sally Beatty and Shane, would you please come up here?
Thank you, Midge. There was a reason that I had Midge do this. Midge was actually the one behind all of this, getting my father and mother into the Hall of Fame. I just want to thank you very much, Midge. I want to thank the Eastern Snowmobile Hall of Fame and all the directors for recognizing the work that my parents have done. And also on behalf of the Beatty family, thank you very much.
Okay, next. The next inductee is Tim Bender. And what we're going to do is have some of his relatives come up, and himself. Is Tim? Sorry. Can you please speak? Let's see if we can put it up here if you want.
This is my wife, Kathy.
I didn't expect to do this. So. Okay. Tim Bender. Tim was 16 years old, a high school junior, when he competed in his first Eastern Division snowmobile race in 1974 in Wheatsport, New York. He competed on a model sled SR 292. He did not have a good finish. Tim and his brother started competing competitively in 1975. They raced every Thursday night in Wheatsport, New York. Tim bought a 1974 Yamaha GPX from his father. It was his dad's trail sled. Tim's senior year of high school with his brother raced every race they were able to go to. Tim raced a 440 and his brother raced a 340, so they did not compete against each other. Tim raced that year in New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Ontario, and every Thursday night in Wheatsport. With Tim's brother and good friends helping with racing, they traveled to many races, sleeping in the box van at night and needing to do well, so they would have racing, do well racing, for they had gas money to go home. When Tim started to win races, he was able to attract attention of some great sponsors. Daly Brothers Yamaha, Snowmobile dealer, Brockport Lawn and Garden, and Dynotech. Tim's winnings in 1978, he won the Snow Pro race at Bangor, Maine, the Adirondack Cup 2 times in Lowville, New York, the Kawartha Cup in Ontario, and in 1986 was Eganville champion Formula 3 for the Bonjour, how do you say that? Bonjour Cup. In 1988 was World Series champion in Eganville Formula 3. In 1979, Tim moved to Kenosha, Wisconsin to work for AN Performance Parts building sleds. Tim met Olaf AN at Wheatsport, New York, when Herb Yancey beat Tim by inches. AN asked Tim if he wanted to use his studs, and Tim used them the next year. Tim continued winning races, the Budweiser Silver Dome 1982 Snow Cross Classic, the 1984 Pro Monroe Cup Snow Cross Champ in Owen Sound, Ontario. In 1988, the Maine Challenge Open Class Eagle 4-time consecutive champion. In 1992, the Great Lakes International World Champion, Michigan. In 1984 and 1985, Tim built 50 signature sleds for Yamaha, including the SRV Phaser Wide Body and the Bender SX and the Bender Outlaw Terminator and Avalanche. Yes. Okay, here's Tim.
I guess that pretty much covers everybody right there. She's already got it. I'd just like to thank the Paul Crane and the Eastern Hall of Fame and the board of directors for giving me this honor. I thank all the Yamaha Motor Corporation and Polaris, which I raced for Yamaha for 25 years. And 23 working at Polaris, running a race team and doing depending developments in the snowcross race sleds. I'd like to thank my sponsors over the years, Woody's, Rocks, SLP, Whitney Brothers. And also I'd like to thank my brother Bob for teaching me the metal fabrication skills that I needed to build the sleds and do the racing that we did. And I thank my parents for instilling the work ethic in me that I need every day to get up and go to work and do the best you can do it, and just do it again the next day, the next day, the next day. So I'd like to thank the Eastern racers like Herb Yancey and Wayne Nicholson, name a few, helping push me to be more competitive in the Eastern circuit. So when I got to the national circuit, I was competitive already. I cut my teeth in racing on Thursday nights at Weedsport on Thursday nights after school. And Thursday night, my brother Bob and I would head down to Weedsport, and we would race on Thursday night, and then drive back to Gorge Park and go to school on Friday, and then drive wherever the Eastern race was in later that year. The World Series of Racing in 1977 was in the USA at Weedsport, and the World Series, and Herb Yancey and I had a race in the 440 mod class. We were side by side the whole entire race. Herb ended up beating me by an inch. The good news is that Old asked me, well, they saw me racing there and asked me to come out and run his snowboard sleds on the snowboard team. Wolf not only taught me how to improve my racecraft, but also to think outside the box. This led to ways of thinking, designing, building many innovative parts of Phaser and RSX and Outlaw and Terminator and Avalanche. Yamaha Factory, Ben Racing came, Yamaha Factory's aftermarket performance parts company, and one of my biggest accomplishments was four Formula 3 races in a row at Eagle River. One of those races, I think it was 1989, Wayne Nicholson's going to get there in a minute, was I were side by side in that race. He got by me on every straightaway, and I passed him in every corner. And he had no brakes on his sled. He would have beat me probably. And he was flying by me going to the corner 10 miles an hour faster than I was going. And I passed him in back in the corner. But anyway, I'd like to thank Wayne. And Greenfeld is good for me as he would if he won himself. He's such a good guy. Also, I'd like to thank my wife and children. My wife of 43 years who has been by my side supporting my whole career. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Our next inductee is Wayne Nicholson. Who's coming up with this?
Oh, no. Come on, bud.
We need someone with a loud voice. Yeah, you get to read.
I try. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Bud Vanderpyle. Wayne Nicholson, Team Fox, and several other fellows that were mechanics back in the day. We had a great time, throws our butts off a lot, and we had a privilege to race against people like Timmy. And we had a great time. So if I can make it through this without some problems, that'll be great. But I've already started out. Wayne started racing in 1969 at age 16, but things really took off for him in 1978 when he drove a 1977 Supermod 340, previously owned by J.R. Tozier.
This caught the attention of Skidoo, and they agreed to have him race a stock production 5500 Blizzard in 1979 season. In 1979 was a successful year in the USSA New England division and winning the number 3 gold bib. In 1980 with the 5500 Skidoo and Moto Ski Ultrasonic, he won several races all over New England in stock A, B, and C, and Pro Stock, winning the number 1 gold bib. He was awarded the highest honor of his career by winning the Jim Amenda Cup, Dima Cup. He achieved this honor over the 1980 race season in accumulating more than 2,800 points in 2 classes ahead of over 2,500 other competitors in North America. In 1981, he won the Amanda Cup again at the World Series in Wilhelm, Saskatchewan, Canada, all while racing under the USSA New England Division. In 1979 to 1988, he accumulated over 175 first-place feature wins and won over 24 season high points championships. He was awarded the Snow Week Top 10 Club honors in 1985, 1988, and 1989, winning the Star of the Series in 1983 in Lincoln, Michigan at the World Series for finishing in all stock classes and Sportsmanship Award. In 1985 in Owen Sound, Ontario, winning stock A, B, and C and Pro Stock. 1987, he returned to Skowhegan, Maine, and won 6 more championships, racing stock production Skidoo sleds. In 1988, he was contacted by the factory at Skidoo in Valcourt, Canada, that he was picked to become one of 5 factory drivers to be racing out of Valcourt in a newly formed Formula 3 race team. In 1989 to 1991, Wayne had the most podium finishes of any factory-sponsored driver. He won 5 Eagle River Championships, World Championships in Pro Sprint, Pro Stock, and 3 Stock A Championships. He was also inducted into the Snowmobile Hall of Fame in St. Germain, Wisconsin in 2011. Sure.
Thanks, Bill. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here today. I'd like to thank Paul Crane and every one of the board members here for this tremendous honor. It's an honor bestowed to me one other time when I was inducted into the Hall of Fame out in St. Germain back almost 15 years ago. This is more than being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I don't want to talk about my accomplishments as much as I want to talk today about the other people that have been previously inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Hall of Fame. And the reason they were inducted into this Hall of Fame is because they may not have ever had the same opportunities that myself or Timmy or possibly even Herb had. I was told by a gentleman who's going to be inducted here momentarily, Gene Guy Poulon, way back in 1978. He looked at me when I ran that Supermod 340 that I got from J.R. Tozier and said, the only way that anybody's ever going to know who you are is you need to go out, you need to race at Eagle River. And that was what drew me to go out to Eagle River. He said, when you go out there and you win, people will know who you are. And I'll never forget that. Gene Guy is the one who steered me in that direction. I had the time to be able to do it because we have a family-run business that's seasonal that we've had for over 105 years. And I also was fortunate enough to work hard at what I believed in, and that was racing for over 31 years. I took him out to Eagle River, started my campaign, started to win, and had a very successful career. Many of these people that are inducted into this Hall of Fame that may have never had a chance to go out and race at Eagle River could have easily been inducted into a National Hall of Fame also. I think about a guy like Ron Hall especially, a person that raced so many races, because there were so many races here in the East and also in New England that we could go 2 years ago. We didn't have to travel to the Midwest. We didn't have to travel to places that were 2,000 or 2,500 miles away to race. These gentlemen were equally as competent and capable. I grew up watching Ron Hall. I grew up watching Herb Yancey. I grew up watching Kenny Young. Those were my idols. I was just a kid then. You know, I know it's hard to believe, back in the late 1960s when Timmy and I started racing, or early 70s, I was just a kid and I watched these guys come to the top of their class. They were tremendous competitors. And once again, beyond this Hall of Fame, which I think was important to have created for these people to be in this Hall of Fame today, they could have easily been in a National Hall of Fame also. The reason I got to that Hall of Fame out in Wisconsin, the reason I'm here today, is more than just me. It's more than just Tim, and Tim knows it too. It is a team effort. It's no different than when I step on a baseball field now. It's not just about the one person. It's about the entire team that plays. And without that entire team effort, you don't get success. You don't have that success. And I asked three of the most important people to come today: Paul, Bud, and Wayne. These guys were with me for so many years, and it's hard to say. I call these guys special friends for a reason, because they've been my special friends for over 60, some of them 65 years. I've known these guys as kids. They went to each and every race. They didn't require anything. They didn't ask for pay. They put their heart and soul into everything I did, and they were beside me cheering, just like a person would be cheering for another person when they would be out there on the ball field. When you won a ball game, these were the guys that were there, and they were the heart and soul of my race team. And I'm sure each person that's here today that is a racer can draw a parallel with me today and say the same thing. How many people did you have that were by your side that caused you to be able to get into that winner's circle? Bud, been with me all these years. He was a guy. He was right there. He would handle all the studs when I came back in. Wayne Myra, he would handle the runners for me. Paul would take care of the clutching with me. They'd oversee that sled just like it was theirs. They would make sure it was ready to go in that next heat staging lane or whatever. And once again, those were the guys that were there. They put their heart and soul into it. They went with me every weekend, weekend after weekend when we raced. And this is about them today. They each are successful in their own careers. Bud went on to have a body shop business. He still does it today. What have you done? 50 years now. 55 years. Paul Macco went on to have a successful career, not only in the corrections department in New York State for almost 30 years, but he also became involved in local politics. He's a local politician. And he, today, to this day, puts his heart and soul into everything he does for the town of Greenville, where we live in, this little town in upstate New York. Wayne Myra, incredible craftsman, incredible. This guy is able to build anything from a chair to a house and everything in between. He still has his business today. And they're all successful in their own rights, and they were the guys that made me who I am today. So keep that in mind. Any of these gentlemen that have been inducted into this Hall of Fame and have been successful have had people that have been by them. My brother was with me. He's the one who got me started. He passed away last year. God bless his soul. He's the reason that I raced snowmobiles. He got me started in this thing. And to this day, I think about him all the time. But keep that in mind, and keep this in mind also, that these are the people that got us to this stage today. My credentials go on and on. I don't even want to talk about them anymore, but there are two races that I want to talk about today. And I'm looking at the guy on the left of me here. He can smirk as much as he wants. And Lanny Benoit said this to everybody when we were at Owen Sound, and I was pulling off win after win after win. And this was in the 1985 World Series out at Owen Sound. I had just won A stock. I had just won B stock. I think I just won C stock. And now the big race came up. It was pro stock. Timmy Bender had won every race he could win on his 50 build SX Bender Special that year, up until the World Series that year. And Lanny was going around the pits telling everybody, Nicholson's got his sled fast. I think I finished second place maybe 12 or 13 times that year, but never won. And I had that thing tuned, and I think I beat you by about a half a sled length or a sled length at the end of the race. Yeah, maybe a ski length, whatever. That being said, 4 years later, he came back and he bit me in the ass. And that was in our famous duel that we had in the 1989 Formula 3 race out at Eagle River, when the two of us, and I had no idea this was going to happen, and Timmy didn't either. We knew when we pulled on the track that we were the two guys that had the less horsepower. We also knew that we had sleds that handled extremely well. We knew the track was rough, and we knew the track was getting down into some dirt and rocks. There was a couple of young kids there. One was the name of Mike Hool. Another kid was out there. He's a few years younger than me. Guy Useldinger, potato farmer from North Dakota. And Guy Useldinger's out there. He made it about 4 laps, and all of a sudden I saw the smoke come out from underneath his hood. He burned down the middle cylinder on that 3-cylinder Polaris. Then the next guy, I saw Steve Hool, all of a sudden he has smoke flying from his. Then there was about 3 or 4 crashes along the way that took place, and none of us planned on this, okay? I knew I had brakes enough to go 15 laps, okay? I didn't know that at the end of the race that we were going to end up going about 20 or 22 laps, I think, by the time we got done. Because poor Timmy, he was one of the ones. He went into turn 1, and he caught that famous ice groove going up into 1, and it sucked him right up into the hay bales. And the next thing you know, there he is. He's in a ball up there trying to figure out which end is up. And he gets back on the sled. They bring it back over. They manage to just I think he tore the windshield off just so he could be able to race it. And lo and behold, he comes back on the track. He picks the teeth, the hay out of his teeth and everything else, and we're back racing again. So now we're about race number, I think probably about lap number 8 on the race, and all of a sudden I'm coming down into turn 1, and the brake handle's getting spongy on me. And I'm thinking, no, this ain't good. So by the time we got to lap 12, I had nothing. I went for the brake handle, and it was like grabbing a clutch handle on a motorcycle. The next 3 or 4 laps, when I was running into the corner, I was running as hard as I could, and I was throwing the whole sled sideways just to scuff speed off of that. And that's what would happen. I would pass you down the straightaway, and as I came into the corner throwing the thing sideways to scuff the speed off, all of a sudden Timmy's coming down in underneath me. We went back and forth. If you ever get a chance to see the video, it's still online, by the way. If you look up 1981 or 1989 Formula 3 shootout, it'll come up, Tim Bender, Wayne Nicholson. Anyway, to make a long story short, Tim ended up beating me by about a half a sled length. So I always said, Timmy got back and he bit me in the ass for that race 4 years later after I got him on the SX that day. But just so many great racing memories, and snowmobile racing is so close to my heart. I would have been a crazy fool like Jacques Villeneuve. At this age, I'd probably still been racing a sled if I hadn't had a heart attack when I was 48 years old. That was back in 2000. I had open heart surgery. The surgeon looked at me and said, hey, you're done with cold weather and high stress. It's over for your lifetime. So I gave it up. I play baseball now full time, and I do that nationally and enjoy that a tremendous amount to keep myself active. But once again, everyone, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming here today. I could sit and tell stories all day long about the great race days we had, but just to be here and be honored with Timmy, Gene Guy, Jeff Duflo. I see Herb is here today also, Ronnie Hall. My God, I mean, the names go on, and there's people I haven't seen here for years either. Sylvain has been here today. John Merriman was here. Johnny Whitaker. I mean, I can throw out names to you all day long. So many of these people meant so much to all of us because we were all a big racing family back in the day. Thank you so much for being here, everyone, and thank you for this honor bestowed upon me. It is something I will never forget, and thank you for the time here today on the microphone. You guys have a great day.
Okay, I got something I want to present here today. Little did I know in 1978, when I went to the Snow Pro race up in Saratoga, New York, that I would be here today with 2 people that were in that race. Now, me being a photographer, I had the best camera of the time, the best lenses of the time, but I could never figure out the sled that Wayne raced, because until today he told me that he got that sled from J.R. Tozier. But I took a lot of pictures. Of course, they were, on film, and you don't know what they're going to look like until you get home and try to develop them. Half of them didn't come out right, too dark, too light, the motion and stuff like that. But I'm so glad that my mom saved the slides, so I was able to convert them into prints. And I had this one done off the slide. It shows Wayne on the sled.
It's incredible. Incredible picture.
And I had him sign it, and we're going to donate it to the museum. So if you want to take a look at it, Paul's going to put it up on the wall. Excuse me. But I also have a binder that I'm going to give to Wayne that shows the race results, the logo that was there that day. And the picture on the back is the same one. But there's one other thing in here that I noticed, and Herb's might have seen it before too, is on the track, Herb's facing forward, and this unknown Skidoo guy is turning around going the other way. I wonder if he said, shit, I ain't going to make it with Herb in this race. But talk about being in the moment of that, right? To take that picture and still have that today, it's amazing. So, and the only factory driver to be there that day was Bobby Donahue. There was a major blizzard out in the Midwest, and none of the drivers made it. So he was the only one. And they used his number 11 sled as the photography sled. They had cameras and stuff mounted all over it. So I included that in the book here. And it's just amazing that I'm here today with Wayne to do this, you know. So.
Thank you. And our next inductee is Jingai Pulin.
Before I begin with my words that I'm going to share with you all, I didn't know Herb was going to be here, so I was telling the story earlier today, Herb. Growing up in Connecticut with my dad in his garage, every summer while he was racing the Manta, and many of you guys know my dad raced the Manta, he had three things in mind. Number one, how can I make the Manta lighter to be better off the hole shot? Because we all knew he was the last one off the hole shot. Second thing he was always thinking is, how can I make it faster in the corner? And the third thing he was thinking all the time at dinner and every meal was, how can I beat Herb Yancey? So I'm really excited to see you, Herb. I've got some prepared comments. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jingai Pulin, the racer. My mom is going to say some words about Jingai Pulin, the human. They had 60 years of glorious marriage together. Unfortunately, many of you know Gene passed away about 2 years ago, and that's why he's not here today. Paul, thank you so much for this induction. It means a lot to my family, myself, and we're going to leave you guys with a little gift that you may remember from many years ago, from 1975, when my father won the 440X that year. I think maybe Herbie may have beaten you that year. Maybe. I have to take a look at the records. Good evening, everyone. It's a great honor to stand here tonight, or this afternoon, and celebrate the induction of my father, Jingai Pulin, into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. Now, for those of you who don't know my dad as well, my dad wasn't just a snowmobile racer. He was an inventor, an engineer, a daredevil, and most importantly, a man who never saw a corner he couldn't make faster. He knew races were won in the corner, and that's where he focused. Many of you know my father preferred to sit in a sled, not on a sled. So he spent 14 years on the track from 1974 through 1988, racing machines that he often built with his own two hands. That's right, most people showed up with sleds they bought. My dad showed up with sleds that he dreamed up. And they worked, well, most of the time anyway. He was the kind of guy who thought, why settle for 2 skis when I can try 3? He was the kind of guy who said, why stop at 1 track when I can have 2? Or better yet, 2 tracks with different lengths. And somehow, against all odds, those wild ideas actually worked. In fact, Bombardier even copied one of his designs later on. You know you've done something right when the big guys start to say, hey, let's try something that Gene's doing. Of course, innovation wasn't always smooth. Like the time his team bus caught on fire in 1981, and he lost the Manta sled. Steve and I were there that night. Most people would have called it quits after that. Not my dad. He went right back to the garage and built something even crazier, a 3-ski snowmobile that gave him great success and probably gave him the competition even greater headaches. By the way, for those of you who don't know, that's the only sled my dad ever sat on. He always raced sleds where he sat in. Couldn't leave him alone in his garage for too long, or you come back and find his lawnmower turned into a prototype Formula One snowmobile. That was my dad. But racing wasn't just about machines. It was about family. He was always side by side with his brother Marcel, his crew chief. And Mikey, his son, is here today. Marcel was probably one of the greatest strategists and probably the only guy who could calm my father down before a race. Together they were a team in the truest sense, and I think that bond was as important as any trophy that they won. There were plenty of trophies, by the way, and I'm going to actually share one in a little bit. He won major races like the Lancaster Grand Prix, where we are today, the Pepsi Open, the Maritime Championship. He too earned Gold Bib Sportsman of the Year and even Most Professional Racing Team. Though I have to say, the Sportsman of the Year award always makes me laugh a little bit. It meant he was the nicest guy in the track right before he blew past you in the corners with one of his homemade contraptions. Off the track, my dad was known for his smile, for his gentle demeanor, for his endless tinkering. His love for the sport and the weekends with his kids, myself and my brother Steve. Years later, he smiled so much when he would tell stories about trips to Eagle River or Valcour, or memories about the Whitakers, who I know Johnny's over here, or Jimmy Rule or Wayne. These are just memories that he would share all the time and smile ear to ear. The other inductees, and especially to Wayne, my father would be honored to share. My father would be honored and proud to share the stage with you. He'd consider you guys friends and contemporaries. So tonight we celebrate not just the wins and the machines, but the spirit behind them. My father loved racing. He loved the challenge. He loved the community around it. He's proof that with a little imagination, a lot of determination, and maybe a few spare parts lying around, you can leave a mark that lasts forever. On behalf of my father, my brother Bridget, my brother Steve, and everyone who's been part of this journey, thank you for this honor. And to Dad, congratulations. You finally made it to the Hall of Fame. Now, if they only had a category for the most creative ways to make a snowmobile go around a corner, I think you'd win that one too. Thank you, guys. Before I turn it over to my mom to tell you a little bit about who my dad was as a person, well, in 1975, I believe it was the Lancaster 11th Grand Prix. My father won the 440X that year, racing his Manta. This trophy stood at our entrance of our home for 45 years. We would put our keys in here. We would put the change that we'd pay the paper boy. This was our DNA. We're going to bring it back to home. It's going to be part of your memories here at the museum.
I married a man who was brilliant, talented, and truly humble. I could try and explain some of the innovations he did in the sport of oval racing, but I'll let you guys, with better memories, trade stories on that later today. I've already heard a couple of them. You see, the man I knew lived his life through a wide-angled lens when it came to fixing something broken, solving a problem, and or designing and building a good product. Snowmobiles, dune buggies, car motors, and later race cars. At every step, every accomplishment and decision, Jean-Guy was joined at the hip with his Irish twin Marcel. They had a very special closeness. And when Steve and Scott started racing, those weekends became even more special for all of them. As many wives, I can remember waiting on Saturday nights for a call from him to hear how all the races went. To Steve and Scott, he was their hero because Papa could fix anything. They adored him, and they continued to turn to him for help through their adult lives. He often shared his knowledge, unafraid to help the competitor, all for the love of the sport. I often told him he would make a terrible coach, giving away all that information. After snowmobile racing, he got involved with stock car racing. In that sport, he touched so many young drivers and racers over the years, and many to this day tell stories of how his input made them better and smarter. He would be happy here today with fellow competitors and mingling among the great ones. From an era of racing that is still going down in history as the very best years. Just a few years ago in a lunchtime conversation, he explained to me how he would have changed something in his last snowmobile design. Whether we were discussing clutch ramps, studded tracks, carburetors, cams, or tire pressure, I was always in awe of his knowledge and happy to be there with him every lap of the way. So thank you for this honor, and we are honored, truly, to have him remembered.
Thank you very much. And our last inductee and final is Jeff Duflo.
I can give you both. So, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Garrett Duflo. I am not Jeff, but my father, Jeff, is here today. So, just leading off, everybody asked me, "Oh, how was your dad? Snowmobile racing, things like that." I wasn't born yet, so I don't have all the good stories, but I have a couple. And I still remember the first time I was like 5. I had a kickstart snow scoot in Yamaha blue, which we'll talk about that because his color is Skidoo yellow. And I remember pulling up, going, "Hey, Dad, you ever ridden one of these?" And he just nods. He goes, "Yeah, a couple times." And off I go, and that's just the way it was. I always knew him as a pilot, still as a pilot today. I grew up around planes, later learned as I grew up. The boys like horsepower in our family, and the women like horses. So that's always continued. We modified everything that we had. I had dirt bikes, ATVs, jet skis. The UPS guy would drop parts off, and then he'd spend a half hour to see what we were tearing apart and why. Just the way we lived. So later in life, I learned his successes through snowmobile racing, and was proud to hear some of those stories. So if you have more today, I would love to hear them. And the one time it benefited me the most is I was 17, started dating a girl in Old Forge, and she's like, "Well, my dad's going to be home soon. I don't think you're going to be able to stay for dinner." He comes home, I introduced myself, said, "Hey, I'm Garrett Duflo." And he's like, "Is your dad Jeff Duflo, the snowmobile racer?" I said, "Yes, actually." He's like, "All right, you can stay for dinner. Let's talk." The stories help, but really today's not about me. And so I would like to read here, Jeff Duflo, inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame 2025. Just started carrying gas cans, studded tracks, and slow timing 640s and 797 Skidoo machines that were piloted by the St. Onge Raiders from Tupper Lake, New York. It was a great opportunity to learn from some of the best. He traveled with the team, working the pits as they traveled through the Northeast. Jeff entered the junior class in Speculator, New York, after borrowing a Skidoo Olympic from a spectator that came to watch. It had no studs, a rubber track, and he was pretty much last in line. In using the snow berm, he was somehow able to, in 5 laps, pass the entire field, earning a first-place finish. As a senior in high school, he started racing full-time, and in 1973, racing Skidoo Stock C, Jeff took 3rd place in the USSA Eastern Division Champion. In 1974, in Utica Rome Speedway, he finished 3rd in men's modified 1st and 2nd in modified 2. In 1975, Jeff won all 5 classes in Malone, New York, Stock 1 World Series, Weedsport, New York, top winner Northeastern United States Snowmobile Championships, won Class 1 Stock Skidoo, won Class Stock Skidoo, won Mod Stock 2 on Motoski, and won Grant City House of Bradford Men's Good Sportsman Award. In 1976, he earned number 51 gold bib, focused on mod. 1977, raced super modified, earned number 7 gold bib. Northeast Snowmobile Championship and won 4 classes. Mod 1 and 2, Super Stock 2. And on January 22nd, 1973, Northeast Snowmobile, U.S. Snowmobile Champion. Top honors are Beyonce, Alan Trotter, and Jeff Duflo. January 29, Saratoga, New York, won the 250 Super Modified class over the Skidoo factory driver, Bobby Donahue. So with that, Dad, can you join me up here?
Thank you very much, Garrett. Yeah, it's quite obviously none of us have aged. I'm looking at my picture here. Anyway, I'm going to try to... My son just flew in, by the way, from Portland, Oregon yesterday. Wow. Oregon?
Wow.
Oregon. To Boston, met us at a restaurant last night at 8:30 to be here today, and I had no knowledge of him being here. So, thank you very much. Thank you for that introduction. Well, on the way up yesterday, we had a lot of winding roads from New York, and I got to thinking, why am I here? And pretty much I started out as a nothing, turned into a something, and then eventually, I guess, I did something, okay? So, you know, it's kind of a melancholy situation. I tell people it's about 40% machine, 40% driver, and about 20% God, or if you want to call it luck, or whatever else you want to call it. But I can tell you right now, that's my formula for this. And I had a lot of races that I have done really well in, and I probably would have won had I not blown a track, or had I not blown a pulse line on a base, had somebody not gotten in an accident in front of me. And one of those guys that got in an accident in front of me was Herb Yancey. This was in Malone, New York, and he and I were racing. It was about 20 below zero. And I think Jim Edema was killed about a week or two or a month before that with a ski when he had ended up on the track. And the ski loops were too small back then. And they made them bigger to 6 inches. So we all wear plexiglass or whatever you call it, some kind of plastic jacket. Well, anyway, Herb and I we got another story about Herb, don't worry. Anyway, everybody likes Herb Yancey stories. And at the end of the day, we went into the second turn at Malone, and it was, all it was dust particles, snow dust, couldn't see anything. And I saw Herb spin, got into something here, lost, anyway. So I took the machine, and it was a 340 Skidoo modified, put it into the inside wall, spun out, and when the dust settled, literally the snow dust settled, he was probably less than from that middle American flag from me in the middle of the racetrack. And I thought about that, and to this day I think about that, and I've told Herb about that winning the race was important. We were sponsored by Bombardier, he was with Arctic Cat, had a lot of money behind us back then. But what's more important than that is getting through this sport safely and getting through it alive. And I'm going to tell you right now, I visited the Ron Hall, I visited the Chip Elwoods in the hospital, visited several people over the years. And it's very, very important that this sport is not easy. It's very, very hard. People don't realize that. But it takes a lot of grit, a lot of determination, and a little bit of luck with it, okay? Now, here's the Herb Yancey story. We're in Westport, New York. It's a D-shaped track. Now you can envision a D. Let's make the D this straightaway, and then it's a D like this, right? Well, anyway, the start-finish line was about 150 foot from the D starting, which was damn near a 90-degree deal. And Herb and I are running down through there about 95 miles an hour, and he'd get me in the turn a little bit, and on the straightaway, I'd swing out and get on the outside, and I'd slowly inch up to Herb. And by the time we got to the finish line, I was ahead of him. By about the width of this plaque, by the way. Long story short is there's 5 laps to a race. We both knew that. We also both knew that on the 5th lap, somebody had to let off at the start-finish line, or neither one of us were going to make the first turn. Well, guess what? Herb, he knows. We went past the finish line. I had him by, again, maybe the width of the plaque, this time not the length. And neither one of us let off, and we hit the first turn berm, which was a snowbank, something in the order of about 5-6 foot tall. Off into the gravel pit in the snow we went. Sleds went head over. I can't say that here today. We both ended up all coiled up in the snow. And first thing I did is I looked for Herb. The sleds were smoking and stuff. That was just normal. Anyway, I go, Herb, you all right? And he goes, yeah, Jeff. He says, how about you? I says, I'm doing okay. I said, Herb, how come you didn't let off? He says, I knew you weren't gonna. And Herb remembers that story, by the way. But anyway, I'm very proud to have accomplished what I didn't really start racing snowmobiles. I started sucking methanol out of nitromethane machines in the mid-'60s, slow timing machines with megaphones on them, and I'm surprised I'm not deaf from that. Does anybody remember megaphones? Yeah, they were quiet, weren't they? They were very quiet, you know. And I learned what methanol tastes like, because it's clear. And until you swallow a little bit of it and burp methanol for about an hour later, those memories still are with me today. Anyway, I want to thank the Duflo racing team. My father, Tom Duflo, was a great, great mechanic, a fantastic person, grew up in a garage. And he invented a stuffer, by the way, in the rotary valve engines that's on the rotary valve was in the base of the engine. Most of you people know that. But anyway, on the other side of the crankshaft, there was this big space there. So he invented this epoxy stuffer, put some screws on the back side of the engine and close that airspace up. And he told me, he said, these engines are like an air compressor. You add fuel and you add ignition, and this is what they do. They make power. And to this day, that stuffer, I believe, is still in the crankcases of Bombardier engines, by the way, that my father invented back then. Highlight of our racing career was Lorraine Classic in the late 70s, up in Peterborough, Ontario. It's an indoor grandstand where everybody gets to sit, drink, and have hors d'oeuvres and let us freeze our rear ends off, which we did. And it was a nice ice track with sawdust in it. And at the end of the weekend, I didn't get killed. That's good, because I did blow up. This is back, I have to be very honest with you. Skidoo had a super modified back then that wasn't that great. So everything on the machine was pretty much already cat. Suspension, the drive clutch. Because if you can't beat them, join them, okay? So down the straightaway I go, a little over 90 some miles an hour, and with this 440. And believe it or not, the drive clutch blew off. This blew up right through the cowling. I was going so fast and the track was so hard and icy that I coasted all the way around to the third turn before the snowmobile stopped. Can you believe that? But at the end of the weekend, I was High Point champion. The Skidoo racing team was there, who were running next year's engines, by the way, out of Austria. So if you can beat them on any given day, and Wayne Nicholson can attest to this, you've done something. And that night we had dinner with the Bombardier daughters up there. This is before cell phones, and I don't remember any of that, by the way. I was just a young kid racing snowmobiles, having some fun. And somehow I'm here, and I want to thank the Cranes. I want to thank the board. Thank everyone. I looked at those pictures in there, and the first thing I thought about is, I'm not going to tell everybody that snowmobile racing is easy, and it's just nothing. No, it's a hell of a lot of work, and a hell of a lot of time, and a lot of commitment, and a little bit of luck, okay? And if that happens, and you're lucky enough to do that, you can stand here today. Thank you all.
Okay. Also at the Battle of Saratoga was number 7. So little did I know, he's going to be here today. I had him sign it. We're going to donate this to the museum as well.
All right, well, that concludes the induction. I would like to thank all of you for being here, for all your accomplishments, and for just all the wonderful stories. Also, I wanted to let you know that we were donated Polaris merchandise that's over there, and it's, they're not priced, right?
Yeah, does anybody remember the name of Bob Eastman?
Who doesn't?
I was contacted by his widow, Carolyn Eastman, a while ago, and she likes what we're doing here, inducting these Eastern guys that were really, some of them were never recognized, and she appreciated that. So she sent a whole bunch of Polaris clothing over there on that tarp for free for us to sell as a donation for the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. She sent me a shirt. She sent me a Polaris sign for my shop, because I was a Polaris brat. My uncle had a Polaris dealership here in town, and I became the mechanic on them for about 14 years or so. So, and Bob Eastman came here in 1966. There was the first factory team to race at the Lancaster Grand Prix, the Polaris team. He came with his brother-in-law, Randy Heights, and they stopped at my uncle's golf station up where Dunkin' Donuts is now, and he went in and asked my uncle if he could use his shop to work on the sleds during the Grand Prix. My uncle said, sure. A year later, we were a Polaris dealer. Anyway, Carolyn was very gracious in sending us this stuff. If you would, please, even if you're not a Polaris person, even if, maybe you know somebody that is, grab something that fits, grab something that you think would fit somebody else, put a little donation in the jar inside the dealership in this museum here, and I mean, just be fair, but give us what you can. It's for the Hall of Fame, and that's why Carolyn did it. And so it's Bob's honor and Carolyn's honor for doing this for us. So thank you.
All right, everybody, now that we've concluded this, we'd like to have Tim come up towards the door of the museum. We have a little surprise for you.
Thank you.
I don't know.
These guys, Herb. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to let everybody know, I want to thank you all for coming and also let you know that there is a little bit of food, light snacks inside.
We'll catch
if
up
you'd
with you.
like to go in, and we're also going to do the unveiling of the wall.
All right, so I'm gonna move this inside. It might be getting a little jiggly. So we're going inside for the unveiling. Yeah, I'm gonna go inside for the unveiling. Hey, Mark.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going, Spencer?
Good, you?
Good. Nice to see you, man.
See you.
So while I've got you, Shane, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. Do you feel like making a quick comment about receiving an award for your father?
Yes, no, this is a great day for the Beatty family. I got my mother with me. She's admired in the snow machines of the years past. It's a great day for this. Really glad to the Eastern Snowmobile Hall of Fame for recognizing the accomplishments of my father and my mother over the years. Yeah, just a great day for the Beatty family.
Sure. What if I get a shot of the two of you? Do you want to go over next to her and over by the wall?
You can do that.
Get a shot of the two of you with
Check here.
There we go.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way, to both of you. Very nice. Cool. I appreciate it. All right. So we're here at Crane Snowmobile Museum. Going to have an unveiling here in just a few moments of the new inductees. And this is the Wall of Fame for the Hall of Fame. This is the 9th annual induction ceremony for the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. There's Marilyn Crane. How you doing, Marilyn? Hey, wave for Facebook and YouTube. Thank you. You don't have a business card, do you? Doesn't have to be the second, but before we go.
Let me check on that.
Sure. But before we leave today, we should exchange information. Oh, you even got a spread with some food here. How about that, huh? Yummy. Did Melissa make some chili? No chili today? I do like her chili. Word's getting around on that. Huh? There's Melissa right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So it might be a few minutes here before they do the unveiling. While we wait, let's take a look at some of the snowmobiles. There's something a little different right there. 69 Snow Coupe. It's always fun to come here at Crane Snowmobile Museum. And I highly encourage you to do the same if you're ever in the area. It is by appointment only. So if you're in the area or see that you're going to be in the area, look up Crane's Snowmobile Museum on Facebook, YouTube, or on a Google search for their website. Get the number, call ahead, make an appointment. And in many cases, it'll be Paul Crane himself to meet you here for a tour of the museum. You'll be able to ask him questions and get a picture taken with him. He's a living legend in the snowmobile space. And this is his museum. And he's also got a lot of cool snowmobiles. And remember all the cool patches back in the day? So much fun, so many memories. Look at this wall of patches here. Remember all these? That bring back some memories? Sure does for me. They've got the old purple power lube and some of the other lubes. Got some mini sleds up on the dock deck. When they have the Crane Snowmobile show here in the winter, they have, this is where they serve the food here, right in this little corner here. And yeah, there's like a 1926 or something Model T snowmobile. How's it going? Good. No, it's all good. It's all good. How did you guys enjoy the ceremony?
It's very touching, very good. Every year,
explaining that to her, the stories, it definitely, you get the goosebumps there.
Yes, for sure. And it gets better every year. Yeah.
This is my third one.
Good, good. Yes, yeah, thanks for coming, for sure.
Yeah, you gotta ride.
How's it going?
Bye-bye.
Good. So yeah, if you're just joining us, we're hanging out at Crane Snowmobile Museum. We just had the induction ceremony for the ninth annual induction ceremony, to be precise. And we're just waiting for the unveiling of the new inductees here on the wall. I call it the Wall of Fame for the Hall of Fame over in this corner here, dedicated to the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. Over here to the right, we've got Chip Elwood, legendary snowmobile racer from Team A-Bowl. Hey, how you doing? Good. And there's Chip Elwood right here. How you doing, Chip? Good. Did you enjoy the ceremony today? Yes. Yeah, it gets better every year, doesn't it?
Pardon?
It gets better every year, doesn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you're right.
Sure.
Pardon me.
So yes, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. I'm killing time while we're waiting for everyone to come in for the unveiling. But who's that? Bob Schwartz, yes. Oh, there's sounds like they're starting up that Yamaha out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, I'm gonna go check it out, but I'll be back. How's it going?
Yeah. I think he went to Connecticut.
Yeah.
Wayne Nicholson, who's Greensville, New York.
Yeah.
And then, if you got, yeah, I think his son's in Connecticut. And then Jeff, who's owns that.
Jeff Dupont, we got, white blue toes.
So it looks like we have Lancaster, New York State, and one possibly.
Hey, how's it going, Midge?
Yeah. Hey, Mike.
So we're still live. Do you feel like making a few comments?
Sure.
Sure, maybe in the corner here. So we're going to get a few comments here from the founder of the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame, Midge Rosebrook.
Yeah, good day, Mike. It didn't rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sun's out now, and we had a pretty good day. And we had some top names, big names. Jeff Duplo, Wayne Nicholson, G-Guy Pool, Tim Bender, Mike and Sally Beatty.
Yes.
I mean, all big names.
Big names.
Racing back then.
And some wonderful comments and stories, too.
One. On your
Yes. Definitely.
very good story.
Yes. We'll be featuring those on the podcast real soon. Yes. Yes.
Any nicer.
No.
And a big crowd.
Yes. Probably the biggest turnout I've seen. But possibly, yeah. Yeah. Easily. It sure is. Well, thank you, Mitch. I appreciate it.
First, give thumbs up for something like this. What do you want? Want to get the sun? Got it? Yeah. One more. Got it.
Doesn't get better than that.
Pretty good company there, Jeff.
I'm in some serious company. I'm in some serious good company.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't get better than that. I'm going to get out of the way. Hey, Tim. So with that, I think I'm going to wind it down. Let me go outside real quick. We'll wind this thing down. So yeah, if you're you've been viewing the 9th annual induction ceremony for the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame, and what an induction it was! What an induction it was! I'll tell you, it gets better every year. The stories, the camaraderie, the legends that show up here—it's just unbelievable. Just a wonderful time, and put it on your calendar. We do this usually the second Saturday of September every year. We're going to do our 10th annual next year. Please join us if you can, and if you can't, we try to do this live stream. That's what I'm responsible for, is doing the live stream. Thankfully, I had a good signal, no technical issues. Hey, nice to see you. And just a really, 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 really good time. I know there's a lot of really, reallys there, but that's what it is, my friends. That's what it is. Thank you for viewing, and have yourself a great day.
Hi, I'm Wayne Nicholson, and I am a 2025 inductee into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. And it's been an honor to be asked by this group of people to be an inductee this year. My racing years in the New England circuit consisted from 1978 to about 1988. I actually raced for almost 31 years, I guess it was, from the late 60s until the turn of the century, until 2000. I was basically kind of a grassroots racer in the early days, and then when I came over to New England and campaigned a sled that was just a year old that I had purchased from J.R. Tozier, who was another former inductee into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame, I was able to achieve quite a bit of success with that sled in its second year campaigning it. And that caught the attention of the people at Skidoo, and they agreed to go with the program that I had come up with, which was to try to promote stock production sleds for the Skidoo Snowmobile Company. And I started out with a 1979 Blizzard 5500, and then the following year I was able to acquire a 1980 Motoski Ultrasonic, which was equivalent to a 9500 Skidoo. And those two sleds actually are what really got my feet on the ground and off and rolling with Skidoo. It caught their attention not only locally here in the New England circuit, but also nationally. And I achieved a tremendous amount of success with those sleds. From that, my career kind of blossomed, and I became really a premier racer during the 1980s. Those were my heydays, so to speak. And from the 1980s, going through all the various different race circuits that I ran through, all the different organizations, I still say that this New England circuit, the USSA New England, and then it became the WSRF New England, were the circuits that I chose to race in because of the type of competition. We had great competition. We had lots of races to go to each weekend, and it was something that I looked forward to. The travel for me wasn't too bad. It was anywhere from 3 hours to about an 8 or 10 hour trip, depending upon which part of New England I would race in. And from that point, when I finished racing in the New England circuit back in the late 80s, I had achieved so much success that I actually got a call from the factory, from Valcourt, from Skidoo, and in fall of 1988 I was picked to be one of the 5 factory drivers to be on the Skidoo factory race team to promote their Formula 3 program, and I was the only driver that was able to stay with that program from 1989 through until 1997, when all 4 factories disbanded that program. finished up my racing career in 2000, and no regrets. I mean, I loved every minute of it. I miss it tremendously now as I head into my mid-70s, but it's a part of my life I'll never forget. And once again, I'm extremely blessed with the success that I've had during my career, and also the fact that I've been asked to be inducted here into this Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. Looking very forward to it here today.
Appreciate it. And before we finish, just wondering if you have a quick memory of something interesting or unusual that happened one day in your racing career.
Oh, there's lots of
Lots of
unusual things that happened. I think some of the highlights that I can remember, you know, racing on some of these beautiful lakes in northern New Hampshire, Littleton, Berlin, racing on the short track in Bedford, New Hampshire, racing on the track in Scarborough Downs in Portland, Maine, on New Year's Eve, under the lights with people in the grandstands behind glass windows with heated grandstands. Tremendous memories of that here in the New England circuit. Our yearly trek up to Jackman, Maine. We always did well at Jackman, and they always said if you did well at Jackman, you would be one of those guys that would be looked up to as the season went on. And Jackman, Maine was one of my favorites.
Nice. I'm Jeff Duflo. Duflo Racing was our team back in the day out of Lowville, New York. That's about 50, 60 miles north of Utica. Raced the Northeast Circuit quite a bit, and finally we ended up being sponsored by Bombardier out of Valcourt, Quebec. And that was a lot of fun. And we got to go up there to see what the machines were like and see what some of the new machines were going to be like and stuff like that. Talk to some of the engineers, see how the snowmobiles were produced back then. And anyway, all that led to me racing for Skidoo, obviously. And my dad started in the 60s with Skidoo, little 12-horse engines and stuff like this. And I started out, I was telling my wife this morning, with the megaphones back in early 1960s, and we were running nitromethane, and I was probably 10 years old. My job was to drain the nitromethane out of the fuel tanks because they absorbed water. And if you've never done something like this, try siphoning methane out of a fuel tank because it's clear, so you can't see it. Yeah. And I drank a lot of nitromethane, okay? So I learned how to do that without getting it in my mouth after a while. And we had to start those three-cylinder engines, the 640s and the 797s. We had to start them with hair dryers. We put hair dryers on them. It would be like 0 outside. And you'd heat the cylinders up because they wouldn't fire with the nitromethane. And eventually, with a thing called blast off, we put that in the gas, and that lowered the vapor pressure so that actually it would ignite, okay? And with that, my job was to pull them, get them started, bring them in, and keep them running for the drivers to race with. So that's how I began working with other drivers, other machines, the physics of it all. And then they banned, obviously, nitromethane, and they went back to pump gas and tuned exhausts, and the rest of it's pretty much history. And I'm honored to be here, by the way. None of this is easy. There's not a driver's picture in there. I know a lot of the guys, raced with a lot of the guys, and I went to the hospitals to visit a few of them on occasion when they got hurt. Regardless of what machines they were running, they were great drivers, great competitors. Learned a lot from them, and are still friends to this day with many, many of them. So I'm honored to be here. It's a very special privilege. When I started out doing this stuff, I never thought I'd ever be here doing something like this today. So thank you. Well, great, thank you. And before we finish, do you have any quick stories about some unusual or interesting thing that happened one day? Or? Well, yeah. Back in the day, there was an accident with, I think it was Jim Edema that was killed with a ski, and that's when they started making the bigger loops on the skis. And so I was racing at Malone, and Herb Yancey and I were in a pretty good race, and it was like 20 below zero. And at the end of the day, we went into the first turn, and Herb had me by a little bit, but he spun out, and all I could see was dust and stuff. So I stuffed it into the inside bank because I didn't know where Herb was. And Herb was from Lowville, New York as well, and even though he raced for Arctic Cat, he's a good friend and a really good racer. I stuffed the machine into the inside wall, spun it out, and obviously lost the race. But when the dust settled, Herb was standing actually laying on the track about 10 feet away. Probably one of the best things I ever did. So I knew I probably would have hit him. Wow. And that was on my mind. So we stopped. I got the Malone AM Vets gave me a sportsmanship award for it. And to this day, it's probably one of the best awards that I have. The world titles, the state titles, and everything else. That sportsmanship award probably means the most to me. Just these people, the commitment that they make, how hard they work at it, that's more than winning. Okay, it's special.
That's about character, yeah.
Yes, it is, very much so. I'll give you one more story.
Please.
I started out in Speculator, New York. I was slow timing some machines for the St. Ange Raiders, who were racing for my dad at the time. And it was a flat, little, on the lake track, not very big at all, had a little berm. Well, anyway, my dad said to me, I was like maybe 13, 14, he goes, "You want to race?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'd like that." But I said, "I don't have a machine." So we went over to some school teacher that was there that he knew from the area, and they had a little Olympic, like a 12 horse, you know. It wasn't, maybe it was 16. I think it was like a 12-3. Anyway, said, "Can my son use your machine in this race?" Yeah, just he's got his helmet and his stuff and everything. And he said, "Well, sure." So I went out there, and there was a lot of Arctic Cats there, some Polaris, and they all had studded tracks. The kids, the junior race. And when everybody left the line, I didn't leave the line. I just spun. So what happened was I got it finally hooked up and used the berm a little bit and the rest of it, and all the other kids were sort of overdriving the ice, you know, because it was on a lake. It was a very small track. And lo and behold, in 5 laps, ended up winning that race. Gave the machine back to the guy, the school teacher that let us borrow it. And to this day, I still have the little trophy at home. It's about this high. And that's probably my second most valuable thing.
That's awesome.
Sportsmanship award. Okay?
Very cool.
All right.
Well, thank you, Jeff. It was great to meet you.
Well, thank you. Likewise.
Yeah.
My name is Tim Bender. This is my wife, Kathy Bender.
Hi.
Today was inducted into the Eastern Hall of Fame in Snowmobile. And I also got the chance to see my 1978 SSR unveiled by the guy that built it. Beautiful sled.
So what was your reaction to that? Did that bring up a lot of memories and emotions for you?
Yes, it did. It made me tear up, actually.
Sure. I believe it. Nice.
Yeah. That sled was, I raced it for a year, but it was quite a sled. You did a beautiful job of restoring it.
Do you have any specific memories of that sled? Maybe like one day where something happened that might have been interesting or unusual? Or?
That sled actually won in the Snow Pro race in Maine with 440 class. That was 1978.
Yeah, nice. And what are your thoughts about being here today and being inducted and everything that's going on?
I'm so proud of him, and it was such a nice honor, and just it's been great. It's been great, and to see his reaction when they unveiled that sled, I just could see the tears in your eyes.
Yeah, there's probably not a dry eye in the house. It was a moment for sure.
Yeah, he said it went 100 miles an hour and 700 feet.
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, I know.
Wow. And any other thoughts you can think of?
No, I'd just like to thank Paul Crane and the board of directors at Eastern Hall of Fame for inducting me and for thinking of me. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming today.
Well, I want to say thank you for the induction and the opportunity to tell you a little bit about my dad, Gene Guy Poulin. My fondest memories of racing from 1977 until the time I started, which was about 1980, was just the camaraderie in the pits. At the end of the day, it was everybody helping everybody. My dad was the epitome of basically opening up his doors and saying, "What do you need? If you need a clutch, you need a belt drive, we'll take good care of you." And the other part of memory I have is my Uncle Marcel. It was always Gene and Marcel, the two crazy Frenchmen, basically driving around these homemade snowmobiles, whether it was the Manta or any other twin tracker. But some great times, and really proud for my father to be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Awesome.
I guess I'll share one story. I went to dinner with my father 3-4 years ago, and we were looking at some snowmobile photos of his sled, and he said, "I don't even remember doing work, his job, because he was so consumed with snowmobile racing." He's like, "I don't even know how I kept the job. I was just focused on creating snowmobiles," and he's like, he didn't really remember work. All he remembered was the snowmobile. So it consumed him.
That's
in a wonderful
awesome.
way.
He had a huge passion for it.
He did.
That's amazing. And go ahead.
It was fun living with a genius because he did everything in our little garage. And every time that he had success, he'd come in and say, "B, you got to see this. This is going to be really good. This is going to be really good." Okay. And he had told me that he wanted the sled to go around and not stop. And I said, "Well, isn't that dangerous?" He goes, "No, it's going to work. Don't worry about it." All right. So I trusted him. Okay. Because that's how good he was.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah. From our little garage.
Yes. Now, I have to add, we just heard one hell of a story from Sylvain Laflamme about his generosity and his heart. Any of you care to do a quick recap of that story? Or?
So I spoke to Sylvain when I was preparing this nomination of my father, and he shared that story to me over the phone. And basically, Sylvain was a young racer. He was at one of the races, and Wayne Nicholson had said, "You really should go out to Eagle River because it's a good place to be seen." He was a very good driver, Sylvain. And one thing led to another, and my father ended up passing around the hat in the pit from all the other drivers. And later that day, he went to Sylvain. This is all in French because they're both French-Canadian. He said, "Here is your $500. You're on your way to Eagle River." So that was very touching when I heard Sylvain share that story with me a couple days. I just heard it again from him now. That's the story.
And part two of that is Sylvain had a factory motor that was absolutely amazing, was just turning ridiculous times, and unfortunately Sylvain crashed, and the underlying sled was not to be had, but the motor was still intact, and my dad had some problems with his motor, my dad was asking around, "Does anybody have a motor?" And Sylvain said, "Yeah, well, I do. I just crashed my sled. You can have my motor." Unbeknownst to Sylvain and everybody else, that this motor was one of the 4 prototypes that had just been released by Bombardier. So now it's in my father's homemade sled, and he's taking care of all the factory, just beating everybody. That was up in Ontario, I think it was.
Yeah, I think so.
No, it wasn't.
No, it was in Skowhegan.
Skowhegan. So he's just beating everybody, and the factory guys weren't too pleased to find out a couple days later that my dad was driving around in their factory motor. But he had a hell of a week, and he just took everybody to town with that motor and had a really good time.
I remember the official from Skidoo being there, checking the number, and telling my husband, "That motor better be back in Valcourt by noon tomorrow." Okay. and they did. They drove it up and delivered it, yes.
So even though the factory was unhappy with Sylvain for doing that, Sylvain was reciprocating a huge favor. Exactly. One big favor for another. Exactly. And that's amazing stuff right there.
Just, the camaraderie that was had in the pits, everybody took care of each other, There wasn't animosity, there wasn't arguments. Everybody, you're on the track, you're racing hard, you're competing. But when you get back to the pits, it's like, "What do you need? I'll make sure you get to the finals. We'll take good care of you and that guy." So.
One other thing I would mention is that we were in southern Connecticut, and that together with New York drivers, the easier place to drive and to race would have been the USSA Eastern Division and not the New England Division. But my father, Wayne, Herb, they all were in the New England Division because that's where it was happening. There was structure, it was organized. You had Teddy, why not? There's the flag guy. Don LaRoche as the tech guy. You had Chisholm doing the leadership. So it was much more organized here, and so that's why we were all coming up here.
That's awesome. Well, great. Well, thank you so much, and congratulations to all of you.
Thank you so much.